When you look at an MVP, the most valuable player, I instantly think of someone who is irreplaceable and is a catalyst in the success of a team, group, company, etc. In anime or TV shows, that's no different. In the MCU, during the Infinity War saga, specifically Infinity War and Endgame, Iron Man and Thanos were looked at as the MVPs of both movies by fans. Thanos for being such a well put together villain that brings everything together, and Iron Man is a character that is the nucleus of the Avengers and had the most character focus out of all the good guys in the movies. In The Dark Knight, I love Christian Bale's Batman, but Heath Ledger's Joker stole the entire show, with one of the greatest performances of all time. In Vinland Saga Season 1, Askeladd from the moment he was introduced was going to be the man that was going to be responsible for the future of the Vikings. A catalyst guiding Thorfinn and Canute to the positions that they need to be in order for things to actually change. So for JJK, I'm going to go through the arcs and list off who I think was the MVP and the runner-up for those respective arcs. Starting all the way at the prequel, of course, the MVP for JJK Volume 0 is going to be Yuta. He's the most prominent, of course, throughout the arc because it is his story in the beginning. But even when you factor in Geto, who, in my opinion, around the time he came in, that's when Volume 0 really started to kick up in terms of quality and having someone to really go against Yuta in terms of parallels or dynamics or whatever the case may be. But I will still give it to Yuta because, I mean, with friendships with Maki and Inumaki and Panda, it actually made me want to see that group a little bit more as a tandem. But unfortunately, we didn't really get that. And by the time we got all of them together, they weren't really much of a tandem or a group. They're more so like a duo now with friends. And in Volume 0, a lot of his growth is mainly through his power, trying to learn how to maintain Rika. Also, we're getting the theme of love implemented a lot through Volume 0 from the very beginning with losing Rika and using love as a curse as the theme going forward in JJK that even propels into the main series and is still a prominent theme up until this current arc. Means a lot for JJK Volume 0 and for the character of Yuta. So I would definitely give the award of MVP to Yuta. For the Fearsome Womb arc. Now this one, it comes down to really three. You got Gojo, you got Yuji, and you got Megumi. The honorable mention for this one is definitely going to be Megumi. Megumi introduces the 10 Shadows. He is Yuji's real first friend in Jujutsu, at least, and he plays as the introduction to curses, cursed spirits, cursed objects, and he, along with Yuji, helps bring forth the catalyst of saving each other. It really starts in Fearsome Womb with the jail scene with the delinquent who was brought into the juvenile center, and they were trying to see if they want to fully, save at least his card or report back the body or whatnot, but Megumi wasn't really up for it, but he, in the end, of course, took the ID and gave it to the mom, who was the only person that was going to mourn him in his death. And then it kind of brings forth the will you save a bad person and saving a good person, and what the consequences come from saving both. Not to mention he has that chaotic fight with Sukuna that was just embarrassing, but it also was the first time that we see Sukuna show interest in Megumi. So Megumi has a lot going for him. As for Gojo, that is the runner-up. Reason I got Gojo as my runner-up is because although he does teach us about curse energy, the power system, special grade curses, domain expansions and whatnot, he does lack the narrative behind him. Granted, we didn't get Gojo's narrative until later in terms of what he represents for the series. He is the strongest, he does say that, but we really don't fully see it until the Jogo fight, and even then some people were skeptical about how strong he is, and we don't get that until the next arc. I feel like a lot of people will say Gojo was their first favorite character, and then he has the big fight with Jogo, which that went viral in terms of at least the anime only section, so he has that going for him as well. But my MVP is Yuji Itadori, the main character, introducing us to the series, coming off as an athlete turned into Jujutsu sorcerer with high potential that a lot of us really don't witness and truly get until we get deeper and deeper into the series. And in episode 1, chapter 1, we get the introduction of Sukuna, which he and Yuji have the best dynamic in the entire series, at least for me. The interactions between Obara, Megumi, Gojo, Yuji is the perfect character to pair against all three of them. And it's where we get Yuji's kind of false hero complex that he has for himself. Although he doesn't brag about himself as if he's going to be the savior of Jujutsu society, but he just wants to play his part and he just wants to help people get a natural death. So for Fearsome Womb, I'm giving this one to Yuji. For the Versus Mahito arc, I got really 4 for candidates, and I have, of course, Mahito, Yuji, Nanami, and Junpei. Now going through the list, I would say Nanami does have a valid case. I mean, he does come in as the real second adult of JJK that's going to be prominently used through the series. Got the critical hit with the ratio technique that I think a lot of people really like. And he brought another perspective into the series as a regular guy with another job, someone that views sorcery more so like a 9-to-5 type of job, and they don't take it as seriously in terms of wanting to be the strongest or trying to obtain this insane level of strength, or even trying to see if he can get like a domain expansion or learning different things. Nanami doesn't strike me as that type of character, and nor did he really come off as someone that wanted that. Then in the big fight with Mahito, he comes in and helps Yuji, so that was cool as well. So I don't really think I could put him as an MVP, but definitely a good runner-up. Yuji is in a weird spot because he's not the MVP. His best moment doesn't come really until episode 12. That moment of him vowing to kill Mahito, not exercise, and showing that raw emotion for the first time in the series with a vengeful nature after what happens to Junpei, I think easily puts him up there. But I just can't put him any more higher because he does have that great fight with Mahito. But and even in the middle, he does develop his relationship with Junpei, which was great for the arc. But I don't think I can necessarily put it as high as the other two. With Junpei, I've got to put him as the second runner-up, the number one right after the MVP, because his character arc and story, whether you like Junpei or not, you can definitely say it was the catalyst of this arc, because that's how it was really right on it, rolling out to be. You're going to see the best and the worst parts of Junpei, and even his theme as a character, you know, the despair, the bullying, choosing which way to attempt retribution and getting back at someone who was learning about curses from a curse. So it's a lot with Junpei. I think he's easily the second MVP, and his death impacted a lot of newer readers and viewers such as myself, where once I saw Junpei die, I realized JJK is going to be a series that he's not afraid to cut ties with a character after he's finished with him. So of course the MVP is without a doubt Mahito, the best villain up until, I say post Shibuya in JJK is introduced here. He brings so much hatred out of any character he's faced against. With Yuji, with Nanami, and with Junpei, it was more so of such a manipulation side of Mahito, what we rarely saw, and he took advantage of a weak Junpei. And that little relationship with Mahito and Junpei was such an odd one, because it was like you're waiting to see Mahito eventually turn on him, but at the same time you're not really sure if he was going to, because maybe he was going to continue using them further in the series, but clearly that was not the case. And this was a classic case of a great villain making everyone around him better in terms of writing. So MVP Mahito it is. The Goodwill Exchange arc. Now this one a little hard to judge because every character kind of got their own episode, but it really just boils down to two people. I'm gonna go ahead and give Yuji the runner-up for obvious reasons. He comes in, he's the main focus of this arc for the most part in terms of finding a neutral character. When the villains come in, he's a part of the big fight with Hanami. He makes his funny little return with the help of Gojo, so it's hard not to put him up there. And then the other person I would throw in for consideration is Maki. I feel like a general consensus of reading or watching this arc for the first time, Maki was definitely one of the major takeaways in this arc, with the fight with Mai, the story with her and Mai as a sister, and the whole discrimination in JJK with the women factor in. She also got a big hit on Hanami with Playful Cloud, so you could easily put Maki up there, but the MVP for me is Todo. I feel like Todo's personality, his character, it's almost hard not to put him up there as one of the major takeaways because of his obsession with, of course, fighting the little brother dynamic that he has with Yuji, him liking tall women with a big ass. It's the whole package with Todo. You get everything, plus Boogie Woogie for such a simple technique is a beloved technique in the series. He teaches and explains to Yuji about the Black Flash, which is one of the more rare techniques to gain in JJK. We only seen it a handful of times, and he was extremely pivotal in almost taking down Hanami, if not for almost doing a domain expansion. The only thing he was missing was a final blow, but of course, Gojo had to steal that. So MVP is Mr. Aoi Todo. For a shorter arc, Origin of Obedience, really just gonna come down to who showed out the most. And that's only going to be two. I'm not going to give it to Megumi, unfortunately. Other than the domain expansion and the fact that he had his sister implemented in the story with the bridge and the curse that comes with that. Let's all be honest, the MVP is Nobara. Felt like a lot of people walked away more impressed with her. The fight against Eso and Kechizu, of course, Yuji with his close combat showed out a lot in his strength with a divergent fist going up against Eso. But really, Nobara kind of stole the show with the impact of hairpin and resonance. I feel like a lot of people will say that was their main takeaway and the character that really got them remembering this arc going forward. So I feel like it is, without a doubt, Nobara that is the MVP. Up next is the hidden inventory arc. The arc that I will say is when JJK's quality really started to show just of how good it was going to be for the future. With a past arc, you got Gojo, Toji, Geto. Those were the prominent characters throughout the hidden inventory arc. Now obviously you could say the MVP was Gojo. I mean, his character was explored the most throughout this arc, his past, what he's learning about being strong, protecting people. You see the flaws in not only him as a sorcerer, but even him as a person. That really kind of humanizes him to an extent. And along with Geto, another powerful sorcerer, even though he wasn't necessarily special great until he left, his impact in this arc was still strong, as the downfall of Geto is one of the best character writings in the entire series, and for character arcs it's still prominent and coincides with Gojo and the trials and tribulations of having the limitless and what it means to be the strongest. So if anybody was to put these two as their MVPs, I would not be against it. I'll be for it if anything. But for me, it's without a doubt Toji Fushiguro. The man came in, stopped Gojo with his plans. I feel like the moment he was introduced on panel as a Fushiguro, the interest in that arc for me elevated a lot. And as a Heavenly Restriction user, we got to finally see what the potential of Maki would be, as Toji is someone that is the ultimate wild card in JJK. And with the death of Riko by way of Glock, Toji just massacring the entire group, impacting the entire series, as there was no Star Plasma vessel for Tengen, and Gojo had to unlock RCT through this battle with Toji. That also inevitably led to him using Hollow Purple for the first time. And we all know this led to what's currently happening in JJK right now. So Toji is without a doubt unanimous MVP. The iconic Shibuya incident arc. The arc that is looked at as one of the greatest arcs in all of manga and anime. Who was the MVP of said arc? You got a couple runners. You got Sukuna, the man that caused chaos, destruction, everything throughout Shibuya, showing just how much Yuji cannot lose, because if he does, a monster's gonna come out and everything that he cherishes is gonna be gone. Some will even say Megumi Fushiguro. He helped Yuji in finishing off the old man and old woman, the grandma-grandpa duo. He helped fight Dagon and breaking Dagon's domain, which helped change the tide of the fight. Also with Toji coming in, that was also a pivotal point in that fight, which then led to Toji and Megumi having their moment in Shibuya between father and son, and Toji realizing who his son is after breaking whatever he had under him with the quote-unquote grandson's curse technique. And he summoned Maharaga, which also led to the fight with Sukuna. So I think Megumi has a valid case in there. The ultimate runner-up is Mahito. Mahito, once he killed Nanami, kinda just took things to a whole nother level in terms of writing. The fight with Yuji and Todo, Mahito brought what was already just chaos. He added just despair and evil on top of it, because with Jogo finished, Dagon finished, it was kind of just Mahito was the only one left. And we got to see why he was looked at as the mirror of death for humans, and why finishing him off in Shibuya had to be done, because if it wasn't done, Mahito later in the series would be a nightmare to go up against. His potential was shown in Shibuya, and it was something that the series will never forget. But the MVP is none other than Yuji Itadori. Once Gojo was sealed, Yuji really stepped into the spotlight with the fight with Choso, which in terms of at least the anime, one of the greatest fights that has been ever animated. That entire episode was a masterpiece, figuring out that Yuji is actually Choso's half brother. Then he comes back, he has the fight with Mahito. The moment with Todo, where Todo uplifts Yuji, is one of the best in the series. Yuji getting a black flash off on Mahito. Yuji's emotions was all throughout this arc. We got every bit of Yuji Itadori, the character, up until this point in here. We saw him when he was happy, when he was confident, when he was sad, depressed, when he was out for revenge. We saw all of it. The final moment with Mahito, with him as the wolf and Mahito as the rabbit, as roles have reversed, is one of the best in the series. I will say it is my, still to this day, favorite Yuji Itadori moment. I am you. And it's pretty fitting that for an arc that is going to be synonymous with being great, amazing, memorable, iconic, that the main character is the MVP of the arc. Moving on to the Itadori extermination arc. You got 3 candidates, even though it's only coming down to 2. We got Choso. Choso in this arc, I feel like was very underrated. Choso is one of my favorite characters in the entire series, and I feel like that big brother aspect of him really shines with Itadori in this, as he's trying to protect him and also help him into what he wants to do next after Shibuya and so many things have transpired. And this really feels like the kick off to Choso really beginning his new character arc after the fight with Kenjaku, and we know what type of role he's going to be playing going forward. The moment where they're fighting the other curses and him teaming up with Yuji, setting up for the piercing blood, and Yuji's so strong that he reveres him as a demon god. But I can't necessarily put him as the MVP for this arc. The runner-up will be definitely Yuji. Now, for an arc that's named after him, you would think that he will be the MVP. But as great as Yuji is, and his character kind of takes a little bit of a turn in this arc, and at least mentally, he's definitely not his strongest at this point, as he's taking all the responsibility for Sukuna, destroying Shibuya, and missing out on finishing Mahito and potentially Kenjaku at the same time. He's causing a lot of burden. But the MVP is definitely Yuta. His introduction was one of the best in the series. I will still never to this day understand why Gege felt the need to spoil his own chapter. But regardless, the proclamation of him vowing to kill Itadori for the higher-ups, one hell of a plot twist with that one. Then the fight with Yuji itself was a fun fight, because we can kind of all sense at some point it was danger, but I never really took Yuta as someone that was going to actually kill off Yuji, because I feel like Yuta as a antagonist, even for a little bit, was not really needed. But for the sense of the story, it made complete sense as to why. His presence was felt literally throughout the entire arc, and he just felt like the replacement for Gojo in a sense. I mean, they even were fearing him so much. Yuji felt that this presence, this cursed energy, felt a little scarier than Gojo. And in terms of the execution of Yuji, no one was better else to handle this than Yuta, as he was able to kill him and also heal him, bring him to Choso, heal Naoya, even though probably shouldn't have done that, and explain to Yuji what's going to be happening going forward. He's going to need his help, and Yuji in turn is going to need Yuta's help in case Sukuna gets out. Some crazy foreshadowing, ain't it? Perfect preparation. I mean, we're not even going to just dwell over this one too much. The MVP is easily Maki. In one of the best put together short arcs for JJK, Maki put herself out there as one of the best characters ever written by Gege. I mean, from the start of this arc to the revenge that you feel for Maki, the whole Mai and Maki storyline coming to an end with Mai vowing for Maki to destroy everything. And that wasn't just the Zenin clan. Not only was the Zenin clan versus Maki fight one of the best, one of my favorite in the series, easy top 10, because of the moments and just the art that was displayed in there, the ravageness, the choreography. It was unbelievable. Badass moment, of course. The end fight with Naya was great. It was short, sweet. It was better than their second one, me personally. This was one of those arcs where it felt like everyone who even wasn't a JJK fan kind of wanted to get into it because of this, or because they seen some stuff from Maki and people like, whoa, what's going on? They got to get back into the series. This was a big moment, not only for Maki, but for all of JJK. So easy, unanimous MVP. Now we got the Culling Games. So the Culling Games is going to be treated very, very similar to how the Goodwill arc was, because the Culling Games, we got different perspectives and POVs through the arc, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint who was the quote-unquote MVP of this arc. But it really, for me, kind of boils down to, of course, preference. But I feel like it's kind of 3 people. And we got Yuta, we got Hikari, and we got Kenjaku. And for anyone asking, I do split up the Culling Games and the Shinjuku Showdown, because that's going to be the next one. So technically the Culling Games does end basically right when Gojo comes back. Now looking at Yuta, probably not going to give it to him, because although he did have, a lot of people say, the best fight in JJK, not including the next arc, but up at this point, a lot of people were saying this was probably the best fight in the series, or at least top 2 to 3. So when this fight happened, you know, Yuta has a lot of hype. He's got one of the biggest responsibilities. He's got to take out pretty much the equivalent of 3 kind of special grade sorcerers, or if not, two incredibly dangerous grade 1 sorcerers with Uro, Ryu, and Kurodushi, and Drew was taken out before the real fight even started, so I'm not even going to include him. And this was one of the most impressive fights in the series because there was times where Yuta had to go up against 2 people at the same time, times where he had to fight one person, interject into another fight. It was so chaotic, but it was so well put together, so he's an easy candidate. So coming down to the final 2, this one is the hardest one out of all the arcs because we have Akari, who has, in my opinion, the 3rd best fight in the series with Kashimo. That fight went absolutely crazy. A lot of people were looking at this fight as the best fight in the series, and it was very anticipated, very hyped. A lot of people knew it was going to be a great fight, but I don't think we really anticipated what we actually got. The reveal of his jackpot, the character that is Akari, he is so different compared to every other character that's a part of the main cast that he kind of just naturally sticks out. The incredible moment of saving Panda, his interactions with Charles shows really his true personality, true character, where he doesn't really care about ending people's lives or trying to be, I don't even think he cares about being necessarily the strongest, but of course with the fever and having that gambling nature, gambling on not only himself but other people, it was infectious. It's kind of like, how was this guy just now getting introduced into the series? I would have loved if he was brought in earlier. And then last we got Kenjaku. Hell, I mean, he started the coming games. Had the fight with Yuki, one of the most controversial fights, I know. Even after rereading it, it's still a top tier arc, top 10 now for me. Chapter 202 is still one of the best chapters that's come out within the last 2 years of JJK. With the reveal of how the merger was going to look and the way he was having his dialogue with Choso, not really caring about hybrids anymore like Choso, Yuji, or his other brothers. The dynamic with Tengen, every time Kenjaku's on screen, it's like you kind of got to be prepared to intake a lot of knowledge of what's going on currently or what took place years ago. So I think I'm going to actually we'll give it to him. If you pick Akari, hey, I'm with you too, but looking back at this, it's kind of hard not to give it to Kenjaku. And the last arc up until now, the Shinjuku Showdown arc. Now really, this is kind of only going to come down to 2 characters, of course, Gojo and Sukuna. And even up until now, I probably wouldn't put anybody else up there. My clear-cut MVP is the King of Curses, Sukuna. I love Gojo. You know, he had a great showing. This is one of the greatest fight in JJK. Gojo's best moment in terms of fighting comes in this arc with Sukuna. We get pretty much the ultimate peak of Limitless in this fight with unlimited hollow purple, the different uses of blue and red, even going into depths into how dangerous Gojo's punches and how painful they are when you get hit by him with the blue amplified to it. Chapter 236 for his character really is a good conclusion to it. I feel like in terms of thematically and at least how he words it, I feel like he did a good job at ending the Gojo character here and letting his legacy go on from there. But Sukuna, I mean, the fact that he's still going, I mean, this is one of the greatest gauntlets ever done in anime, especially right now with the current state of villains. So Sukuna going through Gojo, Kashimo, and going right now through Higuruma, Yuji, Maki, Yuta. I mean, he's going through literally all of who we have left on the good guy side. And the fact that we're still learning more about Sukuna in terms of how powerful he really is, the 4 arms, the way he was using Megami's 10 Shadows against Gojo, the fact that he improved on Cleave and Dismantle, it's insane how Sukuna as a villain has pretty much become the nucleus of how this thing is gonna end. And even though he might not be quote unquote the most complex or he has this sad backstory type of villain, you cannot say that Sukuna isn't doing his job above and beyond as a strongest character in the series. I mean, his kill count at the end of this series is going to be something to behold. So Sukuna being the last MVP, at least up until now, got to give it to the king. Those are my MVPs for the arcs in JJK. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with some of these picks. Feel free. I'm going to go ahead and let you know now. Check out that second channel as well. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, helps out a lot. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.